I'll just put it out there. This is something that my brain just doesn't naturally think about. I understand that there's a way to do something. I don't understand how, right? And so sometimes when I see that it's being done, I don't link that, oh, that's robotics or AI, or it can be sped up or automated, or
right.
So talk to me a little bit about what are you seeing that's really. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining. When you do log on, please like, share, comment, leave a little message, drop Gretchen and I a note, say hello. I'm excited to hear from you today, Gretchen, and hear what you've got working on, especially in other women. We were just talking about women in STEM and women in business, but women in manufacturing specifically. It's been this, men's industry and a male-dominant industry. And so I'm curious, how'd you get into this, and how did you get to where you're at?
Time.
So, do you mind introducing yourself and tell me a little bit about what you've got going on?
Sure, thanks. And thanks so much for having me. We've been trying to put this together for a while, so I appreciate you being patient with me. But I'm Gretchen Philyaw, and I'm founder of USA Loves Manufacturing, as well as president of Magenta Technologies. Magenta Technologies is an industrial automation and robotics company, and I started that at the beginning of last year, in the year of COVID, so that was kind of interesting. But also USA Loves Manufacturing I've had for over, close to 4 years now. And I advocate for manufacturing and technology for the USA, and got a lot of exciting things going on. So it's a really fantastic time to be in this industry.
Okay, when you say advocate, what do you mean? Like, what are some of the topics you're seeing that come up? And
yeah, so, when I began the organization, I did it in a very organic way. I was working for a company that I had been in technology for quite a while in the cellular industry. I had my own company in the end that I was a cellular company that we had stores, and we worked with a lot of corporate and government business. And then I started a reverse logistics company because cellular recycling was something that was very important to me back then. I didn't think we were doing enough of it. And then T-Mobile came into the mix and started it and brought it into, the companies themselves, T-Mobile, AT&T, Verizon. So at that point, because I'd been in that industry for so long, even though 5G was very exciting, it was M2M and then IoT at the time. But I decided I wanted to try something new. And I really, I started looking, and I saw a company that was a very small company that looked like, it could benefit from my experience. It was a company called Universal Servo. And I started working in that company. They did industrial repair. And I basically worked my way up to director of sales, and I helped them revamp the selling of that. And, they stayed in the repair, and that was really in equipment, and that was kind of their focus. I saw a benefit to also building up robotics, the automation. That's where we're all going. And, it wasn't quite the culture that, was my fit. So I was jumped out of there at the end of at 2020. I decided to start my own company again. And it's been a really exciting time, even with COVID, because I built so much of a network. And I really just had a great last year, and, looking forward to this year.
Okay, so tell me challenges during COVID, and tell me what are your focuses right now that you're working on in the business?
Yeah, there were quite a few challenges. But again, I think, I always would say, if you build it, they will come. And, that's kind of like the old Kevin Costner Field of Dreams quote. And it was almost like a funny quote at the time, but it really made sense last year. I had built up my network, and, LinkedIn was such a big piece of what I was doing that when people heard that I had, gone out and started my own company, they came to me and they wanted to work with me. And it was some of our industrial, what we used to think were competitors, but I always felt like if we collaborated together, there's enough business for everyone, in my opinion. And, if you create a positive environment and you collaborate, then you can win. And, that's what happened. I had some of the top repair automation companies come to me and want to partner with me in certain markets. And I was able to create those partnerships. I've got some fantastic companies, industrial repair service. Actually, can we start that over again and edit that? Because ICR actually is one of the companies that I work with, as well as Motor City Spindle, and all those letters get a little confusing. But yes, they are working with me right now, and we work and build a market. Also, I've been very fortunate to be a distributor now for Applied Robotics, which is a fantastic company, and couple other like Cobots, TechMan, that J.H. Foster and I partner with, etc. And it's really been a fantastic year as far as that goes.
Okay, so tell me some of the projects that you maybe are seeing that are very forward thinking. I'll be honest, AI, and I'm going to be a little vulnerable because I'll just put it out there. This is something that my brain just doesn't naturally think about. I understand that there's a way to do something. I don't understand how, right? And so sometimes when I see that it's being done, I don't link that, oh, that's robotics or AI, or it can be sped up or automated, or
right.
So talk to me a little bit about what are you seeing that's really forward thinking. In your industry.
It's such an amazing and interesting time because, when we looked at robotics in the past, it was very much an industrial way of thinking. And, of course, like the top automotive and the tier suppliers and companies of that nature were using the industrial robots in applications that made sense, like building a car, etc. Mm-hmm. Well, Esben Ostergaard, of course, the founder of Universal Robots, who to me is the Henry Ford of robotics, was very, very forward thinking when he thought of Universal Robots with his partners. And what that did was bring in, a new way of thinking for robotics and automation. And it opened it up to so many applications. And it's just been such an exponential growth from there. And that's why, again, I truly believe he was the nascency of us moving to that next wave. We used to have the agrarian way of thinking, and we moved into the industrial way. And Henry Ford was the person known for that. But, Henry Ford actually had advisors at the time that they were bringing in this new way of thinking. And of course, then he became the name of it because he could build it out. Well, I believe, people like Esben Ostergaard not only had that way of thinking, almost like a Da Vinci, I call it the Da Vinci Redux, because it's not only bringing in the engineering side, but also the creativity and changing the world. And what they did is they brought in the way of thinking, then they implemented. And now with cobots, you can do everything from having it stand right next to you to do something that's a repetitive motion to, making a pizza and putting it in a pizza oven. And that's really an amazing thing because that will change the world. And it will also help us go to that next, I guess you could say we don't want to ever go to a dystopian way of thinking. We want to always think, how can we make our lives better? And it's not robots replacing humans. What he and the others have done is really create an environment where we're able to get rid of all the dirty jobs, get rid of the repetitive things that, are harmful to humans, and make it a better world. There are things we can automate that we haven't even thought of today. And, with all of the companies with the end of arm tooling, the grippers, etc., they're helping also with, taking us to that next step. For instance, Applied Robotics, they are very, very consultative with the way that they do, a lot of their end of arm tooling and the grippers, and they will, fine tune it to what the customer needs. And those type of companies, when they know that it's not just a one-stop shop, that we can actually, make these things for these newer applications, that's how we're going to get there, I believe.
Okay, so what in all of your experience, right? And as far back, are you still there?
Hmm.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. My service is all messed up, and I'm trying to. My Wi-Fi is blinking in and out, and so sorry guys if it's
Oh,
affecting the
yeah.
press on the other
Yeah, that's
side.
fine.
So, um,
That's the world we are in now. We all are
yeah.
doing these meetings and things. Yeah.
And honestly, it's one of those that I've just learned to go with the flow because I used to get
Right.
nervous that it wasn't just perfect. And I mean, I've been in the middle of a meeting and someone starts blaring a music video. And I was like,
Yeah.
whoops, that ain't going to work. How do I get
That's
rid
funny.
of
I've
them?
had to do those too.
So, or the upstairs neighbor starts blaring music sometimes. It's always
Right.
great.
Or my son
um,
comes through and wants to get a glass of water and the ice starts clinking.
right, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So, talk to me about what's your favorite? What really drives you right now in this? What's something that you're really passionate about?
There's so many things that I can't even begin. It sounds almost silly in some ways, but I always use that hashtag, like kid in a candy store. And that is absolutely how I feel being in this industry. And it's just been the most amazing experience for me. I don't feel like I'm working. I didn't feel that way, for so long, even getting into, when I first started getting into it, because I always said, I was able to go out and meet with these companies, these manufacturing or technology companies, and it was just like this, brave new world in a good way, not like the actual, novel. I use
Right,
that brave
right.
new world all of the time, but the Huxley novel was not exactly, a positive, but I believe it is a positive because, we are entering into this next, I call it the next wave. And when you go into these manufacturing and technology facilities, it's amazing to me what they're doing, the engineering behind it, and the expertise, and they continue to grow. So that's what I was seeing when I went in every time, like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so what I really started seeing was, why are we not talking about this? And that really was almost like a reverberation in my mind, like every night. And I have really bad insomnia, but I would think, why are we not celebrating manufacturing and technology? And why are we not celebrating these people that are amazing and that, are taking us to a new way of thinking? So that's when I really started wanting to build up, and I started USA Loves Manufacturing. And that's what I get excited about because, that I keep growing and every day going into these facilities. And that's why it's almost like it's not even like a job. I don't think
Yeah,
of it that way.
that's how I feel. I get to talk to and go in and see so many hemp manufacturing and hemp processing, and that's the piece of this industry that I'm really passionate about. Right? Is
Sure.
the manufacturing, what we're able to do with the product, right? And with that being said, what we're able to do back for our farms, right? Because without our
Right.
farms, we wouldn't have it. So, have you seen a lot in the hemp industry? Tell me what you've come
I
across. I want to
have.
know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because it was a couple years ago, and before COVID, I was almost people got to know me on LinkedIn because I was going to so many shows, and that
Mhm.
was because again, I knew when I would go to any of the shows, I was going to be able to see the technology and talk to the people. And they would be able to tell me what they're doing and show me. And it's all, you could go and see so many new companies. And I started seeing, a lot of the cannabis, the hemp, a lot of people that strictly all they were doing was automating the hemp process. Or,
Yeah.
cannabis is such a huge market. Obviously, more than I do everywhere else. And we're just building that up nationwide. And, I'm an advocate for that because I believe that hemp, if you look at, and I know again, we're going to do a separate conversation about all of this because you are the expert about, hemp and cannabis and our applications there. But I noticed that they were automating with these companies. And I have a very good friend. He's in the life sciences arena. Sunset Resources, Alejandro Figueroa. He's again one of those thought leaders and genius that I just, every time I have a conversation, even though we're good friends, I feel like, I am so darn lucky to be able to even engage with people like him. And, he started with life sciences, and now they're kind of branching out, and they see a lot in this industry as well. And, like for instance, with the textiles, there's a lot of sustainability and benefits to using hemp versus, other type of, I guess you would say, what would you say? Right, products as
or alternatives. Yeah.
So you're the one that probably should tell us about what you're seeing in that arena.
Oh, there's tons, and we talk about it all the time, right? But I'm kind of curious as you were talking, and this just as you're speaking, I'm like, oh, this is another platform, another avenue where we as a global hemp association, or our members and the number of people that show up to our meetings, right, connections, could really provide value to people in the manufacturing associations or events, right? Because they're the ones that are creating these products, looking for new ways to be more sustainable, right? More cost effective, more earth friendly, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So I actually was just thinking how beneficial it would be and how much I would love to collaborate and be able to be a go-to resource for people that are in this arena or in this piece of the supply chain, right? Are you seeing when you go to events, what type of events do you attend? What type of meetings, and where did you really go when you talk about growing your platform or growing your network? What did you do? And I think this is good for people to hear.
Right. This was actually, of course, before COVID. So
yes,
there was a lot. It was very different than what we see today. I was going out to a lot of the trade shows. And again, because when I started working in this industry, I was working in the industrial repair. And, that was very close to what I used to say about when I worked in cellular. I loved the cellular industry, and I was so fortunate to be in that from not the very beginning, but pretty much, a very early stage. And I started working at a company, just to sort of segue into the answer. I worked for a company called Nextel, which was an amazing company, fantastic people, and it was one of the best corporate cultures I've ever been in. But, I started and I worked with another top salesperson to build an agency. And then we moved on to, I guess, build that out. And what I always said about cellular, and the reason why I stayed in it so long, is I could throw a rock and hit someone that would be my customer. And, I meant that at the time, every single company, business, technology, however you want to say, what that was, needed cellular. And we were right, because look now, everyone has a cellular phone, everyone. So, and then of course the technology too, with what was M2M, and now it's IoT, and now 5G, of course, is we have to be smart connected. That comes from cellular, essentially. So it was an amazing time. So when I started in this industry, I said the same thing, and it was a very simple statement, but it's so true. I throw a rock and there is a customer or a potential customer, because manufacturing and technology, think about it, it touches absolutely every piece of our life. And it starts from the very beginning, it's there at the nascency of, where we are. So that's why it's so exciting. And I would go out to the trade shows, and every single company, every type of trade show, I was meant to be there, and I needed to be there because I could get business from it. But of course, I also enjoyed it. So that was the main thing, being out there, focusing, and just kind of being in the moment.
Tell me the types of trade shows, right? We have CBD trade shows, we have hemp trade shows, we have tech trade shows, automotive. where was your focus, or how did you kind of decide? I mean, I went to so many trade shows last year.
There are, yeah.
I went before, right? So talk to me about where you're.
The beauty, I guess, of, again, manufacturing and technology is there's a lot of trade shows. And, like, for instance, right when COVID hit, I was down in Orlando, and I had started heading down there and was just north of Orlando because I was going to be helping with media for Made in America. It was going to be this huge conference. I had been media, a small part of the media the year before. Fantastic group. And they're actually going to be doing another conference now, and it's going to be in Kentucky this fall. So I'm very excited about that. But I was at a retreat because we were kind of getting to the point where we were thinking about the show and, kind of talking more about Made in America. They just started their nonprofit. Then I moved on down to Orlando, where I was going to be part of the big HVAC. I was going to attend that show. And the reason why I say that is because it's like, why that? You're not in that industry. But who makes up, HVAC? There is various companies. There's one in our backyard, Bitzer, and they have, the ammonia compressor. And those are all manufacturers or technology companies. And when I go to these shows, that's who make up. I was at the poultry show. It's a huge show in Atlanta. That's a ton of manufacturing. They're making these processes, and a lot of them need to automate. And, like, of course, all of the typical shows that we have that, Pack Expo or just so many, and we're still not there. We're not opening up yet. A lot of them are virtual, and the virtual shows just aren't quite the same.
They're not the same.
No.
So I have a question, because I've seen a lot of benefit to Zoom, right? And I'm like you, I went from hosting live events and traveling all over the nation to all of these expos. And I mean, for the first time, I finally bought TSA and Clear and used it from January to whenever we shut down. And then I was like, I finally decided to buy it and do it, right? And then I couldn't use it. And so, but the relationships that I've been able to build, like when I just went to NOCO Hemp Expo, which you should go to. I would love to invite you or go with you.
Yeah, I would love to go.
A hemp expo, not necessarily, well, both CBD and hemp. We're going to see manufacturing, and we're going to see a lot of technology. But I'm really focused, or have been really focused, on the industrial side because of the biofuels and the plastics and everything else, right? Construction materials, the grain. With Zoom, though, I feel like I've been able to meet a lot of people, and then when I actually see them, I feel like I have a relationship where I wouldn't have had that relationship had we not made this shift, right? So I feel like it moved things further along, but you're still not bridging this gap or closing that. You know what I mean? It's very different. And it's also very different when I'm in a room of 50 people, I can intimately have a conversation or a private conversation with all 50 people. And on a Zoom call, I can't. I talk to the group, not personally. And so I miss that piece really bad.
I do too. I think that, there are certain things that we've got going right now. Like you said, it really has taken us to a new way of thinking, and it's very exciting because of that. So in a lot of ways, COVID has just been decimating. And, I don't go down that path because, I'm the type of person that it really, it really affects me to think about how people are affected emotionally, like children, et cetera. So I try to stay on the positive side. And the positives, there are positives to what has happened. And they're huge positives, like Zoom, like absolutely what you just said. That's very succinct in what's going on. It does create the relationship. So if you think about it, when we branch back out and we can start attending, absolutely, you can do a Zoom call and you're able to create that instant engagement between, each other. And then when you meet them, it's only more of that next step. Now, I do believe sometimes Zoom is used a little too much because some calls can easily just be like your typical three-way call, and you don't have to be on Zoom. But I also believe it's very similar to kind of where I got to where I did very quickly. And it's because I was on LinkedIn, and of course I built that out, and people started connecting with what I was doing with USA Loves Manufacturing, and they knew that, I felt and was very organic in what I wanted to put out there. And it was absolutely what was going on in my mind. So they knew that because they see the posts, they see the videos, they knew that there was a truth to it. So they wanted to reach out. And when we started having these conversations, I had a few of them say, I loved seeing, what you were doing on LinkedIn. And, that's how it began. But then it was amazing how when we actually met, you really know what you're talking about. And, that's how I got some of these distributorships that companies, it took them over 10 years to get something like this. And that's where I believe there's a huge benefit to putting your face out there and that interaction. I do, absolutely.
Yes, I agree. And I think that more and more yes, manufacturing is very technical, but it's also still very handshake. It's still very relationship focused. And I think that, when we get in, I compare it a lot to our farmers. A lot of that equipment that's being used or manufacturing is being sold into industries that they're not spending time on Zoom. It is a face-to-face.
Right.
I think there's so much value.
Right.
Where do you think what message do you think is needed to bridge the gap to bring more hemp into the manufacturing sector, I guess, piece of the supply chain? Because it's not really an industry.
Right.
But you know what I mean? Is it? And I almost don't feel like hemp is. I always say like hemp is one of those things that it's not, it will be in every aspect of our lives, from our clothes to our housing, to our food, our animal food, or feed. It's everywhere. And so it's funny that manufacturing and technology are right where you're at, because I really feel like it's the same place.
I'm very excited about what hemp is doing. And, this is the way I equate hemp and CBD, obviously, cannabis, THC, however you want to put it.
Cannabis. It's all cannabis.
Yeah. We looked at it, when we were younger, we all looked at it a completely different way. And, it was very interesting how I was looking at, and I should put it up as almost a joke. I was at a general store, and as a joke, they had one of those 10 signs, and the sign said, "Cannabis, the scourge of your youth." And, of course, it was like this big thing as a negative. And, we have all of the ways of thinking from the past and there's the ice going, right? I told you. But at any rate, viewers, that's just someone putting ice in the glass. At any rate, and it was funny because this, sign was from the 20s or so, and that was like the way of thinking. It was just, a huge negative. But now we know that there's so many benefits and there's so many positives of these chemicals, and the way to use them responsibly is really a huge thing. And I am an advocate for these products and hemp, because to me, it's almost like one word, hemp. Remember the movie, like The Graduate, one word, plastics. Plastics took over the world. I believe hemp and this is just completely my thought, but I do believe hemp is a complete parallel to plastics. And I think that is what we will see for the rollout. And I'm curious about what you think.
I think you nailed it. That's exactly where
hemp.
I've been saying we're at the forefront of another industrial revolution.
Absolutely. I agree. And that's why I'm very excited.
I think you put it right in line. When people say all the time, I'm trying to find where of course they're not in here, they're out on my counter, but I have jars and all different types of plastics made from hemp, all from sheets to bags to jars to biodegradable to not biodegradable but all made out of hemp, right? And I think that it was my aha moment when I realized that plastics have been around as long as hemp has been banned. And I'm this is, and the fact that we can make the same things it's so much better for our planet. And it provides anotour farmers. Again, we go back to how do we feed our people? How do we take care of our rural areas and fix what we've done?
Well, it's funny because if you think about plastics, before, it was a thing, there were many different natural things that we did, and plastics, there's a huge positive to plastics as well. And it's a matter of, changing the makeup. We will never be rid of plastics because, again, I believe there are positives to that industry. And there are people that are very much wanting it to be a sustainable and a green energy. But, going back to hemp and, how plastics took over the world, and hemp is going to be such a big piece of the world moving forward. It's, plastics, textiles, energy. There's so many pieces of it that food that we're going to be able to use hemp for. And again, that is a way for us to support our farmers and to support small business and build it out from there. And also nutraceuticals. And, there's just so many ways to talk about it. And it does come down to the manufacturing and the technology. And the only thing I would say is, I hope we can find a way to continue to educate and advocate so people see when they hear hemp, it's not because we're all wanting to go out and, to the back and smoke, and that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a product and an ingredient that can help move America forward.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions. This is when you're in your element, right? What are people in manufacturing talking about hemp? Like, what is it that they know? And I'm curious because I want to know, how do I bridge this gap? How do I really bring the right education to them?
You know what? It's kind of unfortunate, but there's not a lot of conversation. Okay. And I'm just being truthful. And that's
so what I heard you just say is there's opportunity, lots of opportunity.
A lot of opportunity, very much so.
Cool.
And,
cool.
I think you're in a perfect position because, the Global Hemp Organization and what you're involved in and what you're doing, it's something that can really expand out because we want people to know. And we want to educate, and we want manufacturing and technology to see the new innovations. So I think that's what we have to do, is just educate more.
Absolutely. Okay, I want to go back to the last conversation too we were just having when we were talking about manufacturing and the technology. What we haven't really touched on that I see the biggest benefit around hemp is being able to reshore. Keep manufacturing back in the U.S., right? And not even just in the United States, within rural areas, allowing and creating jobs and something like 25,000 new products or 20,000 new products are going to be manufactured or made out of hemp, right? And so the jobs that we can create and the opportunities for rural areas to have manufacturing facilities. Talk to me about US loves manufacturing. That tells me that's really where your passion is, right? Is US manufacturing. And not just US manufacturing, but what about US sourced?
Mm-hmm. And it is a big passion because of exactly what you said. When I initially thought of it, it was to celebrate the fact that this is such a big piece of what we're doing. And I just started a new global series, and South Carolina Manufacturing Organization is a big piece of kind of the rollout, because I am my column Fabric of America is going to be in their digital magazine, and we're rolling it out to other organizations, any type of state organization or technology manufacturing hemp organization, where the column is going to be in their distribution, email distribution or whatever. So if anyone else is interested, definitely reach out to me. But Fabric of America is to celebrate what's going on right now in manufacturing and technology. And it's not just about larger manufacturing. It's not just about, the Apples, the Googles. It's about the companies that are, like you said, in the rural areas, and they've built out, a manufacturing facility, or where are they going to put that facility? A lot of states here in the South are creating huge tax incentives. For instance, Georgia. I mean, Georgia is one of the, even though I'm here in Georgia, it's one of the states that I think is at the top of that forward thinking. And again, South Carolina Manufacturing, that is why I really wanted to get involved with them. I had been involved with an organization in Georgia that was a manufacturing organization. And somewhere along the way, about the time that I made a change from my other company due to culture, I had that organization basically blackball me from the organization. And I believe he was very threatened because he thought I was going to try and take over that particular piece statewide. And I said, it's all about collaboration. It is about everyone working together. If we don't all work together, then we cannot keep the USA where it is today and move it forward. And I actually am very, very big on wanting to celebrate the state organizations that promote manufacturing as well. And South Carolina was one that was very, very forward thinking. And so is Alabama and Florida. They realize it's about collaboration, and they're not worried about someone coming in and doing anything to their mix. They want to, push out like I do and help everyone. And that's why USA Loves Manufacturing is important, I think, for the whole nation to keep that collaboration going.
There's a hemp event in Florida for hemp growers that I'd love to invite you to. I'll find out when the date is that's coming up. But they've done quite a few. They do 6 or 7 a year. This is like their, I don't know, they've been doing it for a few years, 3 or 4 years. But so they've got a pretty good group, but they just do, all over the nation, a bunch of small events.
That's
but
great.
It would be a good opportunity. And I would love to start going to more events that you're going to. I see the need for there to be a voice to talk, and I would love to utilize those existing platforms where there are already people in that space. Yeah, what a great opportunity.
Yeah, and that's why, I'm really excited about doing the article on you and your organization coming up for South Carolina Manufacturing Magazine, as well as, I write for Innovation in Tech Today and, Plastics News. We're going to be doing an article coming up, but I'm also implementing and starting my magazine, Galvanize. And that was kind of a step back because of COVID, but I'm excited to roll that out. And it's about manufacturing and technology and kind of how we create that conduit to the culture of America too, and the world. So there's a lot of exciting things, and I believe we should get, what's going on in the hemp industry out to the world, because they need to see that there is a more sustainable way to do things. A way to make it part of the green energy that, it's interesting because I was part of the United Nations events that were for the International Women's Month, and I had a really good group that I was involved with. It was a symposium, and we were talking about the United Nations and what they're looking for and what their mandates are for the future. Mm-hmm. And so much of it is about creating cleaner energy, making it a more sustainable, a more ethical place for everyone. And I believe hemp has its place in that.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and my understanding is that at that table around sustainability, hemp is now a conversation, right? Because
It
from
is. Yeah.
seed to cradle or seed back to soil, it is a much more sustainable, or can be a much more sustainable. Can be, I think, needs to
Yes.
be very, there's a lot of pitfalls and there's a lot of mistruth, right? It is a weed and it is drought resistant, but it's not a miracle plant when it comes to save everything. I mean, there are
Mm-hmm.
still has to be taken care of. It still costs money. There's still a lot of
Right.
hard work, and there's a lot of capital that needs to be put into the industry in order to really get it going, especially in the United States. From being somebody that's not in the industry, right, and talking about it all the time, sometimes I think we that are in the industry get blinders on, right? From your opinion, what's needed to really move hemp to mainstream? Understanding what you know about it, and I think you're right on when it comes to, the value on plastics. But what do you think we need? What needs to happen?
I would say, to me, a lot of it is almost legislative as well. And, I think making sure that your voice is heard in DC is a big piece of it. And, that part I am not schooled in, as far as like how to create that. But that's what I think would make a huge difference, because it's almost like they always talk about the whole top down. And I think there is something to that. Like, the top industry needs to be on board. But also, like you said, I mean, we need to start from ground up. And when we have, for instance, hemp farmers, and the one thing that I see overall everywhere in the industry is we really need almost apprenticeships again. We need mentoring. And that's why I'm a big advocate also for vocational schools, because we have got to get these vocational schools back into a big mix. It creates more jobs. It creates more of a positive culture for people. Not everyone's going to go to college, and we can build that piece up. And I think, bringing hemp into all of these pieces and making it part of the conversation is going to be key to, moving it forward more and more, almost like a snowball effect. If you've got it coming from top down and you've got it ground up and, in different industries, in different places, it starts becoming a movement.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Well,
I think that's key.
I think you're exactly right. And I think that the conversation has to be had at multiple levels, right? But I
Right.
do think that there is a disconnect, even in just what you've said, right? And you're not the first person that said that hemp is just not a conversation. I was speaking to somebody about a large textile organization, international, and very few people, maybe a handful of their thousands of members, are involved in hemp. And yet in our organization, I have a small group, say 700 to 1,000, that are heavily involved in hemp. And I think that we forget, that when we get to talking, and I'm sure it's the same with you, you talk about manufacturing all the time, and it's a common discussion where it's not for others. And so today was very obvious to me that there's this opportunity to help bridge the gap. And instead of approaching one-on-ones, I would love to collaborate with you, or collaborate and even attend some of the events, that you're attending, and just have the discussion about what they're seeing and kind of find out where we can provide the resources and make the
Right.
connections for a more sustainable, especially if somebody's, injection molding with plastics, right? Now we can use hemp plastics or an alternative, and just how do we bridge that? I would love to. And equally as much, I would love to find out from them more specifics about what they need. What do they need from our industry, right? We talk and speak to a lot of the spinners and mills, weaving mills, and on the textile side, but I am really curious about the plastics. What are the specifics?
Right. And I think once, you kind of get that going in one group, like for instance, I know the technology is there and it's probably being created every day, but the more that they have people out there that, maybe they're already working on a textile and, engineering process, but now they think, okay, well, how do we bring in hemp to this? So it's innovation, and that's almost like bringing it forward too. Like, make sure that they know this is a possibility, and now we can think about how we can bring that in and make it a new product, a new service. We're doing it every day in textiles, for instance, new technologies. So hemp is very key to that.
Cool. Tell me about new technologies you're coming across in textiles. I had no idea. I had no idea textiles were going to become a passion of mine.
Oh, I know. And it is a huge place to, put some time into, because going back to reshoring, I think it was in the early 90s, close to 50-something% of the clothing was still made here in the US. And today it's less than 3%. That is amazing. And there, not only is it the fact that's not even acceptable in any way, shape, or form that we've allowed that to happen, but opportunity wise, it's an amazing time to bring it back. And there's ways that we can, because how many pieces of clothing do you have in your closet today?
Right.
Quite a few, I'm sure, right? Out of all of those
more
pieces
than I can count.
But you know what? How many of those pieces of clothing today in your closet do you wear within a month? What percentage? Probably less than 10, if you're like me. So we don't need all of the clothes that we purchase. So what if we were to instead buy, if we didn't buy 5 shirts that, are all made from, elsewhere in the world, what if we had 2 shirts that were made here in the US that have fantastic quality, and, we can mix and match with other things, and, right. And we know that the money is going back into the United States or into a country that has that certain ethical piece and the ethical workplace that gives back. And that's what's most important. And that's why we have to bring back the textiles to the US. And there are a lot of new technologies that are exciting that need to stay here and not, be reshored or moved out to be made somewhere else in China or somewhere.
Well, there's no sense in us growing it and then sending all of our revenue to another country.
I agree.
And then buying it back from them. I
Right.
think it's just, and I think that what happened during the pandemic, when you said earlier, a lot of great things came from this, is it exposed just that. And I think hemp for me has exposed the breaks in the supply chain. It's educated me completely on new opportunity that created, gave me the, I guess I educated myself. I dove in and was like, wait, what? This is an opportunity? How? And then what it did is it unfolded all of these breaks. And so and the correlation between child labor or human trafficking to manufacturing and in other countries, and the labor laws and things like that just it was a light bulb for me. It was this aha moment as to where I really saw opportunity to bring and reshore manufacturing of hemp textiles, and
Absolutely.
Hemp being a solution for rural areas to provide better revenue, better yields on their crops, that then it's just this cycle but in another direction that is way more beneficial.
Right. And, going back to what you were saying about how do we kind of take care of our farmers? How do we take care of, those areas? The way I look at it is, again, COVID did expose a lot of supply chain issues. So why would we not think about it from that type of, aspect where we have hemp farmers? Where does it make most sense to take that raw product and make it into, something that's going to be made into the next step? Why would we not keep? It always amazes me not to jump around, but it amazes me when there's a raw product and it's being sent halfway across the United States or out of the United States, processed, made into something, then it's brought back. What is that cost involved? And that's what people aren't seeing. They see that their shirt is $15. But what did it take to get that shirt back here for $15? The shirt, if it was $50, okay, that seems like a lot to pay for a shirt in theory, or 80
But
or whatever.
people are
But what
doing
is
it.
that shirt?
People are doing it all the time.
I know.
They're
But what
just,
if that shirt
yeah.
lasted, if it was a t-shirt even, what if that t-shirt lasted 2 years versus, and I know because there are certain places I love to shop that are the discount places, you know, like that, you know, they do actually have decent clothing, but how long does that shirt last? And what I'll do when I go to this, well, to Target, which I love Target, but if I see a shirt that I like and the shirt is $10, I'll buy 3 of those shirts because I know it's not going to last that long. But when I buy from a company, for instance, like an American Giant, that t-shirt lasts for, I mean, I think I have one that I wear that I've had for way over 2 years. And I don't just wear it once in a blue moon. So that's what you have to look at. And again, where does that money go? It goes back into the United States or to a country that does have sustainable practices, ethical practices that, you know, they're looking to build and focus on the, you know, the world as far as like, how can we make it a better place? Not that they want to put the toxic chemicals into the stream and it doesn't get, you know, taken care of or regulated. Those are the things we have to look at because the world, the last I checked, is circular, is global. And what happens there comes here and through the atmosphere, or however you want to look at it, or it, you know, happens to trickle down into culture. So that's why it really does matter.
Oh, absolutely. I have a question and now I forgot what I was going to ask you.
That's me all the time, by the way.
I'm wondering about, the ship that was just stuck. You know, we talk about, you know, our supply chain. And I talk about education, you know, and a lot of why I do what I do, and I like talking to other people like yourself, is to educate. And I think a lot of the conversation that has to be had is educating our consumers about what it means to be ethically sourced or sustainable. And what is, you know, what's greenwashing? And I think that a lot of it is a true education and having real content out there instead of greenwashing.
Right, I agree. And, you know, that's why when I first started USA Loves Manufacturing, it was very much a movement about USA, USA, USA. And I still believe in the USA, but I do believe in the fact that it's very much like being on an airplane and the airplane is encountering some problems and it might go down. What do you do first? And you have to put on your oxygen mask first so you can help others around you. And that's why I believe we do have to build out, reshore, fix what we're doing here first, but then look to also, again, collaboration. It's not just about the United States. That is a very narrow-minded way of thinking. And I realize that too. Yes, we want to make and build out the USA, but where else can we do that in a sustainable, ethical way for the good of, you know, America, for the world? That's, you know, Mexico, that's Canada, that's Denmark, you know, Europe, the places where they believe in what we believe and want to create that better world. And that's what I think we need to do moving forward. And I believe that's how Made in the USA becomes more and more what really matters. And again, building it out to those countries that believe in what we believe.
Well, and it's I think that there's a reason we have a global supply chain. right? It's our duty to support other countries and theirs to support,
Right.
not support, but to provide, right, resources, to
Collaborate.
have resources. But it's one thing to be dependent on it. And I think that's where we get into a pinch. You know, earlier when you were saying that 97% of our textiles are imported from other countries, you guys wake up. If that supply chain is broken, what are our students or kids wearing to school? Or what happens to the cost of that $1 t-shirt you're used to buying? And I think that, you know, I see it already in our groceries. My grocery bill is astronomical right now.
It is, yes.
It blows my mind. I check out and I'm like, wait, I haven't bought groceries that cost this much since I had 9 children in my home. And now I have 2, and my grocery bill.
I know. But also you can see it when you shop. You know, when you go and you shop for clothing, there's a lot, or really any product. If you go out today to, let's just say, your discount places like your Targets, your Walmarts, and then go to a mall and then go to a boutique or wherever, you'll notice they don't have the inventory. And it's almost like it was last year at the beginning of COVID. It still hasn't bumped back up. There are shelves empty at places like Target and Walmart. And it's because so much is being brought into the US and they can't get it because of supply chain. So we can change that. And again, there is a cost that the average consumer doesn't necessarily see when they buy their $10 or $15 shirt, but you're paying for it. You're paying because you're buying the $15 shirt versus the $40 shirt. And you just can't track it as an individual, but it's there. And that's why we have to change it. It's going to help overall.
Well, I think that's where your education comes into play. And this is where I commend what you're doing, because you hit the nail on the head. And it's something that, like I said, I didn't know I was passionate about. Supply chain. I don't think that the majority of the United States knew what procurement or supply chain even was. You know, I mean, something that's.
I agree.
I mean, until this. And so I think that you're a leg up because you're years ahead of people. And this is something that has to be discussed and has to be talked about. And yeah.
Well, the beauty of it is, and you know, there's so many people that I depend and learn from every day. And I'm really just the voice, and I'm not the expert, and I never will pretend to be, because I don't know everything and very little of the details that, you know, these other people know. And that's why it was important to me to try and create these ways to get their voices out there as well, and do the podcast like you're doing, or, you know, my new video series that I'm putting together. And I'm very excited about that. And it's called Fabric of America. We started out with manufacturing and tech discovery tour, and now I'm just so passionate about the Fabric of America as part of it. So that's what it is getting those stories out there to people. And we're all continuously learning. We're in such a new technology age that if you don't learn every day, you're going to be left behind. Mm-hmm. And you have to accept the technologies. Like, again, you know, people are afraid of robotics. They're afraid that the robots will take over the world. They're not going to anytime soon. And, you know, it's only if we are languishing here in the background that someone who is maybe a little more nefarious has the chance to bring that AI application or even robotic application in that could possibly move us toward kind of that dystopian way of thinking, versus who are the thought leaders, who are the innovators, the engineers, the people like Anais Ben-Ostergaard that not only are looking at the engineering side, but they're looking at it for community and for the world and for the betterment of a new world tomorrow. And that's why we've got to all be cognizant of it, or someone else is going to come in and destroy what we have. And that's even more important to the reshoring, to all of the sustainable pieces.
Well, and really that's what's scary, right? And somehow we've got to light a fire under people's behinds. And I'll be honest, I wholeheartedly believe our kids are going to change the world if we give them the opportunity to.
I agree.
And so I'm passionate about getting hemp into our kids' hands because if, with their brains and their smart minds, they will create the technology if we don't, right?
They
We can
will.
pave the way and to make the change that we need to bring it back shore or to be sustainable, right? To
Right.
survive without being doom and gloom. But really, I think it's reality and what we're up against. And so, but
Right. It's a very exciting time, and I can't wait to be here for every moment of it, God willing.
well, and I'm like you. I want to put a microphone in front of people. I would
Right.
love to highlight people that you come across that are utilizing hemp or are interested in hemp. I would love to bring them on for a Q&A panel if we've got
Right.
manufacturing, because I think what needs to happen is we need to bridge this gap and give them the confidence that that we have the capability of utilizing hemp, right? And so, however I could help, maybe what we could do is put together some discussion panels on different pieces within the
We should.
manufacturing space, and I can bring, we can open it up to experts or for people in the hemp industry to kind of discuss it and have these recorded conversations. But really,
Right. I think
yeah,
that would be fantastic. And definitely also, even on Clubhouse, I think
yeah,
it's very important to bring Clubhouse into the mix. And, that's a whole other way of getting information out to people. And, we're going to be doing some things on that. I'd love to bring you into that as well. So a lot
please.
of different conversations and, good ways to get the information out there. So we just have to, continue to do it.
Well, and like you said earlier, it's all about collaboration. I'd love to link arms with you and support you wherever I can. I did share your LinkedIn profile and just name and business on the social channels. So if you guys would like to reach out with Gretchen, don't hesitate to follow her on LinkedIn. And then same for you. If you need anything, I'll send you some invites occasionally to events if you want to ever jump on and just kind of chat,
Yes,
see who's
definitely.
doing what. It may give you a great opportunity to highlight some, real leaders in the industry, and I can help there, especially for all your articles. You're a rock star.
Yeah,
So,
that'll be
well,
great. I'm looking forward to it.
for sure. Well, thank you very, very much. We'll sign off. It's already been an hour, but thank you guys for listening. And for those of you that are looking or may have missed it, we share all of our content on Patreon. This is good for you too, Gretchen, if you have questions or anybody else is interested. Patreon's a platform where we can share content or all of our content. We share links, interviews, meetings, Q&A
Awesome.
series, and it's a low monthly subscription for like $12 to $36, something like that. So lots of info. But the full interviews are all posted there and available for people to view. So other than that, you guys, thank you very much. We'll see you next time. Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, Gretchen. See you later.